When we drift back into the vast sea of Greek mythology, we often find ourselves listening to tales of gods and goddesses who shaped the world not only through their actions but also through the legends told about them. Tonight, let us turn our attention to Ares, the god of war, a figure who is often misunderstood, sometimes disliked, and yet always present in the myths that swirl through ancient Greece. His story, though filled with battles, rivalries, and conflicts, can be told in a gentle way that helps the mind settle, the imagination wander, and the body slowly slip into rest. Ares was born to Zeus, the mighty ruler of Olympus, and Hera, his queen. Unlike his siblings, who carried with them symbols of wisdom, beauty, or craftsmanship, Ares embodied the raw, untamed spirit of war. He was not the god of strategy or careful planning. That role belonged to Athena, the goddess of wisdom in battle. Instead, Ares stood for the chaos of combat itself, the clash of weapons, the cries of warriors, and the burning heat of conflict. He was a god of bloodshed, but also of vitality, courage, and the fierce energy that surges in moments of struggle. From the very beginning, this made him a figure both feared and revered. The ancient Greeks often had a complicated relationship with Ares. While they respected his power, they did not always love him, for his presence meant destruction and death. In Homer's epic tales, Ares was sometimes called hateful, or a curse upon mortals. Yet in other stories, we see another side of him, passionate, loyal in his own way, and deeply connected to the forces that give rise to both destruction and renewal. After all, from the ruins of war often comes the chance for new beginnings. Ares spent much of his life in conflict not only with mortals but also with the other gods. One of his most notable rivalries was with Athena. She represented the intellect of war, the art of strategy, and the discipline that comes with order. Ares, in contrast, was the storm of emotions, the anger, the adrenaline, the reckless charge into the fray. Whenever the two clashed, it was not simply about swords and shields, but about two different philosophies of battle. For Athena, war was sometimes necessary for justice. For Ares, war was a natural force of existence, a tempest that swept across the land without much regard for right or wrong. Yet even a god of war has moments of tenderness. Ares is perhaps most famous for his love affair with Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and desire. Their relationship was passionate, secretive, and filled with both joy and embarrassment. Aphrodite, though married to Hephaestus, the god of craftsmanship, could not resist the allure of Ares. The two would meet in hidden chambers or quiet groves, seeking each other in stolen moments. But, as often happens in myths, their secret did not remain hidden for long. Hephaestus, clever and inventive, discovered the truth. Using his mastery of craft, he forged a net of unbreakable chains so fine they could not be seen. He placed it upon the bed where Aphrodite and Ares often met. And so, when the lovers next came together, the net fell upon them, binding them tightly. Hephaestus then summoned the other gods of Olympus to witness the shame of the two. The gods laughed, some with mockery, some with amusement, and Ares found himself humiliated before all of Olympus. Yet even this did not end his love for Aphrodite. Their affair continued, for the bond between passion and war is strong, and together they brought forth children, among them Eros, the god of love, Harmonia, goddess of harmony, and the twins Phobos and Deimos, who personified fear and terror. Phobos and Deimos, in particular, became close companions of their father. When Ares rode into battle, he was often said to be accompanied by them, spreading panic and dread among soldiers. They remind us that in every conflict, fear and terror walk hand in hand with courage and strength. This family of Ares paints a fuller picture of him, not only as a god of destruction but as one whose legacy shaped emotions, relationships, and even harmony in surprising ways. There are also stories of Ares's encounters with mortals, where his fierce temper often brought him into direct conflict with heroes. One such tale tells of his son Cycnus, a violent warrior who challenged travelers and sought to build a temple with the skulls of his victims. When Heracles, the great hero, confronted Cycnus, Ares himself intervened. Father and son fought alongside each other, but even the god of war could not overcome Heracles. Wounded and defeated, Ares retreated, licking his wounds and swearing vengeance. This story, like many others, showed that even gods could face humiliation and defeat, reminding mortals that no force, not even war, is absolute. Ares also faced capture and humiliation in another myth, when the twin giants Otis and Ephialtes, known as the Elode, managed to trap him in a bronze jar. For 13 months, Ares remained imprisoned, helpless and humiliated, until Hermes, the messenger god, rescued him. This story reveals that even gods of immense strength can be overcome by cunning or overwhelming force, and perhaps it served as a reminder to the Greeks that war, no matter how powerful, could be contained or delayed, even if only for a time. In contrast to these humiliations, Ares was also honored in certain places, especially among the Spartans. For them, war was not merely a necessity but a way of life, and Ares represented the courage and ferocity that they valued above all else. Temples were dedicated to him, and rituals performed in his name. In Sparta, Ares was not the despised god of chaos but a patron of their way of living, a reminder that strength and readiness for battle were essential virtues. Despite this, Ares never reached the same level of reverence as gods like Zeus, Apollo, or Athena. He remained on the edges of the pantheon, respected for his power but never entirely beloved. In many ways, this makes him a very human god, for his flaws were plain to see: anger, recklessness, humiliation, and passion. And yet, like humans, he also loved, fathered children, fought for his honor, and endured both triumph and defeat. One of the more reflective aspects of Ares's mythology lies in how the Greeks used him as a symbol. They understood war intimately, for their history was filled with battles between city-states, invasions, and the struggles of empire. By telling stories of Ares, they gave shape to the unpredictable, destructive force that touched every part of their lives. Through him, they could understand the difference between the cleverness of Athena and the raw might of violence. Through his children, they explained the emotions that filled soldiers' hearts. And through his humiliations, they reminded themselves that war could never be trusted, for it could just as easily turn against those who wielded it. There is also a certain stillness to be found in these stories when told at night. To imagine Ares riding across the battlefield, his chariot drawn by fire-breathing steeds, his companions' fear and terror by his side, is to imagine the storm of conflict itself. But when the story is spoken softly, with time and patience, that storm becomes distant, like thunder heard far away. It reminds us that war, though violent and loud, is also a passing thing, a chapter that fades into silence. Perhaps the most curious aspect of Ares is how his legacy shifted over time. The Romans, who inherited much from Greek mythology, transformed Ares into Mars, a god who was far more respected and honored. Mars became a central figure of Roman identity, tied to agriculture, fatherhood, and the founding of Rome itself. This contrast between the despised Ares and the celebrated Mars tells us much about how cultures see war differently. For the Greeks, war was a necessary evil, a destructive force. For the Romans, war was the foundation of their empire, a source of pride. And so Ares, the restless god of Greek tales, found new life in another civilization, reshaped and reborn. When we think about Ares, it is easy to focus only on the noise, the violence, the chaos he represents. But if we listen more carefully, we can also hear the deeper lessons his myths carry. They remind us of the dangers of unchecked anger, the humiliation that pride can bring, and the complexity of passion, even among gods. They remind us, too, that conflict is a part of life, but not the whole of it. Just as Ares loved and fathered children, even the god of war knew there was more to existence than endless strife. And so, as the story of Ares comes to a close, it leaves us not with the crash of weapons but with a quiet reflection. War may roar, but it always fades. Pride may swell, but it always humbles. Love may burn, but it always persists. Ares, god of war, remains forever in the myths, riding into battle and retreating in defeat, loving in secret and enduring in shame, feared and respected, but never forgotten. He is a reminder that even the fiercest storms eventually pass, leaving the world once again to silence, to rest, and to peace.